Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to continue covering the games from the first creation league. In round 5, I faced an opponent only 200 points higher rated than me. I started with the London system because I couldn't really decide easily whether I was going to play e4 or d4. Decided to go for d4 because he plays lines which I quite like playing against. So we have d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, c5, c3, sort of the main line. But after knight c6, knight d2, he plays bishop to f5. And now queen b3. The idea here is since e6 hasn't been played yet, it's impossible to play queen b6 because I can just take dc5. And after queen takes b3, a takes b3, e5, I think white should be slightly more pleasant in this position because I have the open a file, and after knight f3 I can put pressure on e5, where e4 wouldn't be a bad move. He would have to play something like knight d7, and now simply b4 and expanding. Now that being said, this is not too bad for black, it's just, I think, more pleasant for white. So instead of queen b6, he plays queen to d7. Now knight g to f3, and now if white is given time, knight e5 comes, and black is sort of in trouble because the queen has to move again. So c4 and queen to d1. And now white has several different plans depending on what black does. White can continue with queenside play with b3, undermining the structure, putting pressure on the c4 pawn, or white can attack on the king side, depending on what black does now. After e6, bishop e2, bishop d6, I'm now given the opportunity to go knight h4 and start an attack. So bishop d6, queen d6, knight h4. Of course, retreating the bishop to g6 would allow me to just take. I don't really mind the h-file being open because I'm going to be playing on the queen side, keeping my king in the center for the moment. It's not that easy to push through with e5. For example, something like this happens, and knight f3, and here it takes and takes and takes, and queen takes. And I don't even have to play queen d4, go for a queen trade. I can simply continue bishop to f3 and start building up pressure on d5. If knight e5 is ever played, I would happily trade and go into a slightly better endgame, where if the queens are traded off, the fact that the h-file is open doesn't really matter, and either d5 is going to be a weakness or c4 is going to be a weakness. So after knight h4, my opponent simply castled. And this position I didn't know at the time. Now I do know it. I couldn't decide what to do. So I spent some time thinking about this. Again, I have 3 different plans. I have b3, I have e4, I have g4. They all seem good. I think I have time to prepare e4 if I want to play e4. Cannot play it for the moment because he has 2 piece defenders. If he had to take with the pawn, then e4 is great because I can take knight c4. But I can play f3, and I think after f3, g5, g4, if he plays gh, I just play gf. I don't know what that position is like. It should be messy. But I didn't really want to go in for that when b3 and g4 are both much cleaner. So now basically I have to decide whether I want to attack the king or if I want to have a normal positional game. Because if I castle and then go b3 or go b3 and then castle, we have a normal game. But I decided to go for g4. Now, I think the best move should be bishop to d3, trading off the light squared bishops and takes, giving his knights the c4 square and the e4 square. And if either of them is traded off, then he supports the pawn on d3, so I couldn't really take. I think this is best. In the game, he played bishop to e4, which now allows for another tempo with f3. The problem with f3 is queen to g3, meaning that my h-pawn is going to be hard to support. So I constantly have to keep an eye on that. I mean, it's not the end of the world if my king ends up on f1, but I don't want it to end up on f1. Okay, now bishop g6, takes. Okay. And here I spent, I'm going to say half an hour, maybe more. It might seem absurd that I spend so much time in this position, but there are 2 moves I have to consider, and they are very different. One of them allows for a lot of counterplay, the other one doesn't. But the one that doesn't blocks my options on the king side. So the best move positionally is definitely g5, simply because it prevents g5 from black. Now knight h5 wouldn't be a good move because I can simply go f4 and I'm going to take on h5. So he would have to go knight to h7, and now I continue f4. After that I follow up with probably queen c2, castles queenside, h4, h5. He has to play b5, b4 of course, and the question still remains who is better. I have the e5 square for my knight. f6 is not easy to play because in conjunction with queen c2, g6 is going to be a weakness, so I have fairly easy plans. Queen c2, castles queenside, knight f3, knight e5, h4, h5. Seems to me that he is going to be in more trouble than me, but it takes me more time than with the other option. Now the other option allows for g5, and g5 is a strong blocking move from black. f4 is the other option, and I did play it, allowing g5, which is the only move. If g5 is not played, then I go h4, and let me just show you that. Let's say he plays, I don't know, b5, seems active. Then h4, I don't know, b4, and now I simply go g5. And this is much worse because I already have h5 ready. Again, knight h5 cannot be played, so knight h7 and now simply h5. And I believe that black should be lost here. I don't see a decent defense. I mean, he's getting some play on the queen side, but my king is still on e1. I can just play king f2. In the meantime, the lines are getting open towards his king. This would be hard. So g5 the only move. Okay, fg5, of course, I don't want to lose my pawn. Okay, the knight has to go back to h7. And here I played a move which I calculated when I was deciding between f4 and g5. Now, I decided to give up a pawn. I don't have to give up a pawn, but I did decide to do it. The normal line which I wanted to play when I decided to go for f4 in the first place was knight to f3. Allowing a central break, possibly, which isn't really that scary, even though e3 would be weak. For example, takes, and I can just go h4, and if he takes, I take with the bishop. He checks me, I go here. I think this is fine. I think the fact that his knight is misplaced and the fact that I can probably get my queen to d4 and to f4, and sort of force a queen trade or simply pick up the d5 pawn gives me enough play. And I don't think I'm going to hang mate on e3 or anything like that. So after knight f3, he probably doesn't play e5 straight away, even though that seems tempting. Let's say rook f to e8, I go h4, allowing queen g3 stuff to happen if he wishes to do it. Let's say b5, let's say queen d2, queen g3, king f1, takes on g4. Again, I should have enough play because of his knight. It's not really easy to get the knight to g6 and my attack is strong. But I felt this was really messy. I saw this position in my head when I calculated that, and I wasn't sure what was going on. I mean, this is very hard to assess when you're not moving the pieces, when you're analyzing the position during the game. The other option after knight h7 was to simply force him waste time to pick up the g5 pawn, which seemed very sensible to me. And obviously later on I can break through with e4. I'd considered e4 straight away, but I don't think it's that good. I need to get my pieces into play first. So queen c2 played, which isn't bad. It's a good move. Knight f3 is better, keeping the pawn, but queen c2 is fine. And of course he takes on g5. If he doesn't take on g5, then I continue knight f3 probably in this position. Okay, knight takes g5 and now castles queenside. So in this position he only has one move. We both saw it. He has to block my h pawn. He has to play knight h3. If he doesn't play knight h3, I play h4, and this is now much worse. My king is not in the center, my knight is still coming to e5. And he did play knight h3. And they missed a beautiful resource here. So my only task here is to remove the blockader. So once I remove the blockader, I can continue with my attack. And there's a beautiful move here, which sadly I didn't consider. I don't think he considered it either. And that's bishop to f1. The exchange is not hanging. It's not hanging because if knight f2, I go knight c4 attacking the queen. He has to take, and I simply want a pawn. And c4 is hanging, h4 is coming. This, on a high level, should be winning for white, I believe, because the attack is strong. My bishop is better than his knight. b4 is hard to play because c4 is hanging. Still, it's not over, but a great position. Instead, I did the same thing slowly because I didn't see bishop f1. I played rook df1, then b5, he gets counterplay, then bishop f3, then b4, then bishop g2. And this is way too slow. So instead of playing bishop f1 in one move, I played it in 3 moves. Or attacking the knight in one move, I attacked it in 3 moves. So I basically lost 3 tempi in the attack, which in a position like this is crucial. Takes on c3. I cannot take the knight because he plays knight b4 and I resign. So bc3, knight g5, h4, knight h7. And here I had a chance to neutralize what he was doing. My next decision was key, and I got it wrong. And I could not afford that. So there is one way to ensure that white has more play and a quicker attack than black. There's only one. If you want, this is a great exercise. I did see the opportunity, and that was one of my candidate moves, but I decided that I need to play actively first. So look for a great prophylactic move. Okay, so what's going to happen on the next move is either queen a3 or rook b8. So what black wants to do, double up the rooks on the b file, win my queen, or mate my king. So the only way to prevent that is king to b1, which seems absurd, but it makes a ton of sense because once the check comes, you go king a1, and now my rooks are connected to my king, and it's not easy to infiltrate. If he tries to double, I can simply do this and sort of say, okay, I'm not going to be attacking anymore, we are playing a normal game, I'm going to play e4. But basically, I'm not in trouble. Instead, I just continued. g5. Okay. Knight e7. Bishop h3. Another time-wasting move, I'm going to say. But I wanted to prevent knight f5. Rook a b8. Now it's over. Now I don't have king b1 anymore, of course. h5. Queen a3, king d1. You can see that it's not the same thing. Rook b2 comes and... whoa. Okay, queen c1, knight takes g5, rook to h2. Now I'm threatening knight takes c4, and at this point I'm only playing for tricks, unfortunately. This is a good lesson in attacking and defending chess, a good lesson in prophylaxis. I just did not understand the key features of the position as well as he did. He wasn't afraid. He attacked when he had to attack. He defended only when he had to defend. I missed my opportunity to play bishop f1, after which I could have been better, almost winning. And after that, he didn't miss any of his. Now, the tricks, if he prevents them, he's winning outright. So queen a2, rook ff2. I'm trying to run away with my king, but it doesn't work. He wants to play rook a1. And after knight h3, I resigned. Why did I resign? Firstly, I'm a million pawns down. Secondly, I'm losing a piece because if I take, he plays rook b3. If I move my knight to b1 or to b5, he takes it. If I play to c2, he plays rook b2. So this game was, I mean, the reason why I'm not higher rated, I just didn't understand it, and I prefer losing games to reasons and patterns which are completely unfamiliar to me, and instead of just blundering something in a good position. So this is just, this was just bad. I mean, bishop f1 I was actually looking for ways to dislodge the knight and I didn't find it. So this is lack of tactical vision. Bishop f1 shouldn't be a hard move to find. It's not a hard tactic. If somebody had presented this to me as a problem, I would have found bishop f1. I just wasn't looking for out-of-the-box solutions. After this, wasting too much time on bishop f3 and bishop g2, I just couldn't afford that. And wasting too much time in a position like this is fatal, as my opponent proved. Now, he is a very strong player, a young player, very talented, very, very strong. So congratulations to him, very good game. Okay, see you tomorrow for the next game. I've never been this excited to show you a game of mine. I hope you like tomorrow's game. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.